This man was killed by a dead snake. In 2014, Peng Fan, a chef in China, was preparing an exotic delicacy, a meal made from the deadly Indonesian spitting cobra, a snake whose venom could shut down a human body in minutes. Peng carefully decapitated the snake, removing its deadly fangs and venom glands. Believing his work was done, he set the snake's head aside, but the snake was not finished with him. Unknown to Peng, a snake's reflexes don't die immediately. Even severed, its head can still bite for up to an hour. Suddenly, as Peng reached for the head, the snake's head bit deep into his skin, releasing its venom. The venom, a powerful neurotoxin, began paralyzing Peng's body almost instantly. His breathing became labored, his muscles locked in agonizing pain. With no anti-venom on hand, the poison spread through his system quickly, and there was nothing anyone could do. And by the time help arrived, Peng Fan was gone, a man killed by a snake that was already dead. Even in death, nature's deadliest creatures can still strike.
Holy shit. Yes.
3 of the most disturbing facial reconstructions of unknown people. Number 1 is Septic Tank Sam. Many people find this reconstruction to be very unsettling, but the context of the victim is actually so much worse. Discovered by a couple in 1977, the body had been stuffed into a septic tank and was wrapped in a yellow bedsheet. His remains had suffered such severe beatings and torture as well as sexual mutilation, it took them months just to determine the sex of the body. Decades later, through DNA evidence, they were finally able to determine that these were the remains of 26-year-old Gordy Sanderson. However, the nature of the murder has never been determined. Number 2, Maria. Discovered in 1952, the remains were found in Black Hawk, Colorado, and they effectively named her Maria until they could determine her identity. But they never did. Examiners found that she had been struck in the head and that she may have been burned alive, but they're not certain. This reconstruction is pretty indicative of very early techniques and sadly wasn't very helpful so they could identify who she was, and she remained Maria. Number 3, the Montrose Jane Doe. This was a really horrific restoration that was later revised into something that would be more recognizable. So the cause of death was never determined, but the suspicious nature of the body indicated this was most likely a homicide. Her older reconstruction was later archived as more modern composites were made. But till this day, the case is still cold, and she remains only known as the Montrose Jane Doe.
This man's body was found inside a dinosaur statue. In 2021, a massive dinosaur statue was standing silently in the middle of a park. But what lay inside would turn this innocent display into the center of a chilling tragedy. A family reported a man in his 30s missing. He hadn't returned home and his phone had gone silent. Days passed and nothing was found during the search, until a strange odor began to waft through the park. A father and son were the first to notice it, a foul stench seeping from the dinosaur's hollow belly. Concerned, they alerted the authorities. What they found was far beyond anyone's imagination. Rescue workers were forced to cut through the statue's papier-mâché exterior. As they peeled back the layers, they revealed a horrifying sight, the missing man's lifeless body, folded and contorted, trapped deep within the dinosaur. It's believed the man dropped his phone while exploring the statue, and in a desperate attempt to retrieve it, he crawled in through an opening. But once inside, the narrow space turned into a death trap. He couldn't move, he couldn't call for help. Hours turned into days as he fought against suffocation, heat, and dehydration. When the body was retrieved, it told a haunting story. His fingers were raw, his clothes soaked with sweat and dirt. He had scratched on the walls in vain, his screams swallowed by the hollow cavity of the dinosaur. Death came slowly for this man, an agonizing combination of exhaustion and despair.
She was raped 92 times by 72 men. The victim, who was drugged by her husband so he could film the attacks, has had to watch the videos ahead of them being played in court. Giselle Pellicot, 72, waived her legal right to anonymity on Monday at the opening of the trial of Dominique Pellicot, 71, and 51 other men. Police began to investigate the defendant Dominique in September 2020 when he was caught by a security guard secretly filming under the skirts of 3 women in a shopping center. Police said they found hundreds of pictures and videos of his wife on his computer, visibly unconscious and mostly in the fetal position. The images are alleged to show dozens of in the couple's home in Mazan. Investigators also found chats on a site called Coco.fr, since shut down by police, in which he recruited strangers to come to their home and have intercourse with his wife. The husband took part, filmed, and encouraged the other men using degrading language. Dominique imposed strict rules on each of the men who he invited to rape his wife. No perfume or tobacco, cut and clean nails, hands first run under hot water so as not to risk waking the victim. The court case is expected to last for 4 months.
Please be careful who your kids are around. Welcome to Creep Time on TikTok with Silas Dean. This is the story of the demon of Luna Park. Luna Park was a thriving theme park in Australia, even through the late 1970s. It was home to the popular ride known as the Ghost Train. On June 9th of 1979, the Godson family were at the park when a mysterious costumed man approached the family without speaking a word. The mother, Jenny, just assumed that this was a park actor, so she ended up taking this photo of her son Damien standing with the man just before he would join his brother and father riding the Ghost Train that very evening. While the boys are riding, the mother, Jenny, walks off to go grab a snack, but then returns to find the ride completely engulfed in flames. The Ghost Train had been set on fire with 35 people on the ride at the time. 7 of those riders would never make it off, including her husband and 2 children. At some point much later, Jenny would remember the mysterious costumed man who had approached the family just before the fire broke out. She ends up contacting the park owners to try to inquire about who the man might have been, and to their horror, they explain that they do not employ any costumed actors within the park. For years, police have pleaded with the public, but the man in the mask has never been identified and is largely suspected to be involved with the fire of June 9th. Till this day, he is only known as the Demon of Luna Park.
This young girl was killed at a hockey game. In 2002, a NHL game was going on and fans were very engaged. Among them was 13-year-old Brittany Cecil, a bright and cheerful girl who had recently developed a love for hockey. This was a special outing for her, a birthday gift from her dad, who wanted to share his passion for the sport with his daughter. As the game progressed, the puck was struck hard, ricocheting off a player's stick. The crowd watched in awe as it soared into the stands, a common but thrilling occurrence in hockey. But then, in a split second, the excitement turned to horror. The puck flew into the crowd and struck Brittany in the head. The impact was brutal. She collapsed into her seat, clutching her head as those around her screamed for help. Paramedics rushed to her side as her father looked on, helpless and horrified. Brittany was conscious but visibly in pain. She was taken to the hospital where doctors initially believed her injuries were manageable. What no one realized was that the blow had caused a tear in her vertebral artery, a critical blood vessel in her neck. Over the next 48 hours, a blood clot formed, cutting off circulation to her brain. And on March 18th, just 2 days after the incident, Brittany succumbed to her injuries. The once vibrant girl who had come to celebrate her love for hockey was now gone, leaving her family in unimaginable grief. She was just 13 years old.
So this guy, his name's Luigi, and Luigi just unalived a man, and people love him for it. So Luigi's got a lot going for him. He was a valedictorian in his high school, he went to an Ivy League university, and he's generally a charming and friendly dude. And one day, he decides to move to Hawaii. I mean, he's in his 20s, he has a remote job, so why not? And there, Luigi learns to surf. Here's the thing though, Luigi has had bad back pain since he was a little kid. He actually has a condition called spondylolisthesis. And I guess all the surfing aggravates his spondylolisthesis and his back starts hurting like crazy. In fact, it's so bad that he's in bed for a week, and even after he recovers enough to get out of bed, the pain doesn't really go away. So most days, Luigi's just in pain and it sucks. So he does his research and he starts reading books about chronic back pain, and he does everything he can to help himself. but nothing seems to work. And this back problem is really starting to consume his life. Like, he's not sleeping right, and he can't surf, he can't have sex, he can't live the active life he wants in Hawaii. So eventually, he leaves. And I don't know exactly where he goes after this, but things continue to get worse. Like, the pain is just unbearable. Sometimes his legs feel numb, and he just never feels rested. And this is just a bit of speculation on my part because we don't have all the info right now, but it is speculated that this whole time he's battling with his health insurance provider, trying to get them to cover his treatment. And that, unfortunately, isn't going too well, as these things generally don't. And eventually, something happens to him that gets him sent to the ER. And from there, he has to schedule a surgery for his back, no matter what it costs. I mean, there's no other way around it. This is ruining his life. So he schedules the surgery, and he gets it. And it's a spinal fusion surgery where doctors fuse part of the spine together. And so they do the surgery, and after about a week, he's already starting to feel better. And little by little, he becomes active again. And he goes backpacking through Asia, and he ends up in Japan, and this is just what he really needed. But again, this is speculation based on how American health insurance works, but it is speculated that during this, he continues to fight with his health insurance provider to get them to cover his back surgery. And they just keep giving him the runaround like they are known to do. And by the time he gets back to the US, bro has had enough. He's done with these insurance companies, and he's done with the US healthcare system. And so he decides to do something about it. And he comes up with this insane plan to assassinate a CEO. So first, he distances himself from his friends and family, and he stops posting online. He basically ghosts everyone for months. Then he gets a bunch of fake IDs, and he 3D prints a pew-pew and a silencer. Then he takes 3 bullets, and on the casings, he etches the words, "Deny, defend, depose" on them. Which, deny, defend, depose is a reference to delay, deny, defend, which is a reference to the shady tactics that American health insurance companies use to deny coverage to people in need. And so after doing that, Luigi gets on a Greyhound bus, and they believe it originated in Atlanta, and he takes that bus all the way up to New York City. And there, he checks into a hostel, and he waits. 10 days later, it's early in the morning, and Luigi leaves the hostel and he heads over to the Hilton Hotel. And there, outside the hotel, he waits for about an hour for his target to show up. Then, his target does. This guy, Brian. Now, Brian is the CEO of United Healthcare, aka the largest health insurance company in the United States. Now, allegedly, United Healthcare denies more claims every year than any other health insurer. So a lot of Americans really hate this company, including me. F them. So Brian is just arriving to the hotel for an investors conference, probably to talk about his record profit margins or whatever. But then Luigi sees him walking up, and he walks right up behind him, and he aims his pew-pew at him, and he shoots him in the back. And Brian stumbles, and he falls to the ground. And the whole thing is caught on security footage, which I can't show you the murder, but you can see Brian here, and obviously Luigi is here. So anyway, Luigi shoots him. Mission accomplished. And he knows he needs to get the hell out of there before police show up. So he jumps on one of those bike share e-bikes and he flees. And you can actually see him on surveillance footage here, passing by. And so he rides over to Central Park and he ditches the bike and his backpack and his jacket and he hails a cab. And eventually he ends up at Penn Station. From there, allegedly, he gets on a train and he flees to Philadelphia. And so Luigi's long gone. His plan worked, he made his escape. And Brian, as you already know, he doesn't make it. But then the news breaks.
Tonight, the urgent manhunt in New York City after the CEO of one of America's largest health insurers was fatally shot in a brazen targeted attack.
And as crazy as the story is, it doesn't really catch fire with the general public until the public learns about the bullet casings. The ones that had the words deny, defend, depose etched on them. Because this suddenly lets everyone know that the shooter's motive was likely tied to being denied health insurance coverage, something that nearly every American adult has experienced or will experience in their lifetime. And so, real quick, you people who aren't from the United States, I don't think you quite understand. In America, the health insurance business is all run by private corporations. There is no public option. So even if you have insurance and you get sick or injured, the insurance companies will very often figure out ways to not have to cover you. Even though you're paying them every month, doesn't matter. They will find a way to not cover you. It's a really fucked up system that the general public is absolutely fed up with. And so people learn that Luigi unalived this healthcare CEO, and they start going apeshit. Like, people online are defending him, saying the shooting was justified. People start putting up wanted posters of other healthcare CEOs. Luigi gets a ton of fans. His social media accounts quickly blow up with hundreds of thousands of new followers before social media platforms take them all down a few hours later. And people are like reposting shirtless pictures of him, thirst trapping over him, like, oh my god, he's so fine. I mean, people on TikTok are talking about how attractive he is.
Every woman in America is thirsting so hard for this Luigi Mangione guy. Yes, he's objectively attractive.
And so people from all sides of the political spectrum are cheering him on because he's suddenly become a representative of every American's frustration with the U.S. healthcare system. Meanwhile, the NYPD is on a manhunt for Luigi, and they release a few photos of their person of interest, but they don't really know who he is. And he covered his tracks well enough that they can't find him. So the NYPD offers a $10,000 reward for any tips leading to his arrest. Then the FBI offers a $50,000 reward. But so far, no one is snitching, because a lot of people think he's a hero. So then 5 days go by since the shooting, and Luigi, he's been hiding out this whole time, and he ends up in Altoona, Pennsylvania. And at one point, I guess he gets hungry, like we all do, and he decides to go eat at a local McDonald's. And while he's there, another customer feels like they recognize him, and they tell an employee, and that employee calls 911. Minutes later, police show up, and bam, they finally arrest him. Here's his mugshot. And here's some more footage of him. He's in police custody. Anyway, so he's in jail now, waiting on his trial, which will probably happen sometime in 2025. And it's gonna be an absolute circus. But I'm sure we'll cover it, and I'll keep you updated.